In the world of football, where the game's passion meets the hard truths of business, one country's journey stands out. Welcome to the story of Brazilian football's financial revolution, where tradition meets innovation at the heart of the sport. Brazilian football represents a fascinating paradox within the international sports scene. The country is renowned for producing footballing talent unparalleled by most, with leading clubs around the world, including Real Madrid and Manchester City, among many others featuring Brazilian stars in their lineups, most, if not all of whom, started their journey into European football via Brazil. Despite this, many of Brazil's premier clubs struggle with their performance off the field and lack recognition internationally. The poor financial standing of these clubs is often attributed to inadequate professional management, hindering their ability to capitalize on the sport's commercial opportunities. This issue is further compounded by the trend of Brazil's top talent moving to European clubs at an early age for relatively small fees, attracted by the promise of significantly higher wages overseas. With the help of a major shift in the political approach to sport in Brazil since 2021, this may be about to change. In today's video, we dive into the transformation of Brazilian football finance, looking at Botafogo, the rise of foreign investment into Brazil, and how the country is rewriting the rulebook of football finance. If you do enjoy this video and this type of content, then please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I very much appreciate the support. Botafogo, a club with a checkered past, represents a story of renewed hope, born from American investor John Textor. The billionaire owner of Eagle Football Holdings, who also have stakes in Olympique Lyonnais, Crystal Palace and Racing White Darling Molenbeek in Belgium, rescued the Brazilian club from financial distress in 2021. He secured their future with $80 million of financing, and with that embarked on a rollercoaster journey, the story of which Amazon Prime's All or Nothing crew could only wish they were there to record. For more than just one reason, Botafogo is now a beacon of what is possible when foreign investment meets Brazilian passion. Less than 2 years after being rescued from financial ruin by the American businessman John Textor, the Rio de Janeiro Football Club found itself the unexpected favourite to be crowned champions of the Brazilian Serie A for the first time in almost 3 decades. Despite leading Brazil's top division for almost the entire season and even having a 14-point lead at one point, ultimately the football gods had other ideas for a fairy tale ending, choosing heartache instead, with the club eventually finishing 5th, having failed to win any of its last 11 matches. Despite the disappointing finish, the club has been reborn, and with Textor's vision, Botafogo's transformation on the pitch is coupled with new aspirations for sustainability and success off it. It's a narrative of revival, not just for a club, but for a community. The thrilling conclusion of the Brazilian Serie A and Botafogo's remarkable comeback have highlighted widespread initiatives to update the commercial aspect of football in the most celebrated football nation globally. These reforms, encompassing talks on a new league inspired by the English football system, where the clubs control the direction of travel, have garnered support and investment from prominent figures such as Emirati royals and multinational club groups who see Brazil as one of the last few relatively untapped gold mines within the sporting and specifically footballing landscape. But why? A pivotal shift in Brazilian football emerged with the introduction of a 2021 law that promotes the transformation of clubs into business entities, moving away from the conventional non-profit association model. Before this change, only a couple of top-tier clubs operated as businesses. Even though it was already possible for Brazilian football clubs to become limited companies, there is no doubt that this new law, which created the, quote, Football Limited Company, or Sociedade Anônima do Futebol, represents a huge encouragement for the clubs to do it. Similar to Spanish and Portuguese approaches, the Brazilian SAF model creates a special tax regulation specifically for football clubs who choose to be transformed into these entities, usually intending to attract new investors. Currently, contrary to what happens in the vast majority of major centres of world football, the overwhelming majority of Brazilian clubs are organised in the form of non-profit organisations. Among the clubs that already took some concrete action to make the transformation possible, for sure 2 stand out: the very traditional Botafogo from Rio de Janeiro and Cruzeiro from Minas Gerais. This traditional association model was ultimately a system that, while rich in tradition, often led to financial instability and governance challenges which led to debt, and lots of it. For those familiar with European systems, it wasn't too dissimilar to the model in Germany's Bundesliga footballing pyramid that operated as an entirely member owned model originally and all the way up until October of 1998. It was then that the German Football Association, or DFB, has moved to a 50 plus 1% model that still maintains predominant member ownership for all teams, with a couple of exceptions, but has allowed for private investment to maintain competitiveness with its European neighbours. Only this week, those Bundesliga clubs voted in favour of yet more loosening of the rules to allow for a new media rights deals that will see the clubs well compensated in order to hand over the media negotiations to successful bidders, at this stage rumoured to be CVC capital partners, that want to expand the growth of German football in a similar manner. But that's for another video. In Brazil, the member owned model has restricted growth for decades until 2021, when the new rules were introduced. The SAF model allows clubs to operate as for profit businesses, attracting significant investment both locally and internationally. This shift not only opens the door to financial rejuvenation, but also introduces a new era of professional management and accountability. So, what does this mean for Brazilian football? Well, fans and executives share the optimistic belief that increased financial incentives could encourage emerging talents to remain in their home country for an extended period, as well as to ultimately grow revenues and competitiveness to compete with the top five leagues globally. This will in turn deliver more attention on the sport from overseas, generating more investment into not only the teams, but the local communities surrounding them. And the cyclical nature of the industry growth will have far reaching benefits to the overarching economy. To use an example, we could point to the Abu Dhabi Group's investment in Manchester City and the redevelopment of the local area, or to Tottenham Hotspur's ongoing gentrification of their local environment, creating jobs and bringing significant new money into the area. The SAF model offers clubs a lifeline. By embracing business over tradition, clubs like Botafogo are finding new ways to thrive. The move towards a more sustainable model hints at a brighter future, one where the sport's financial health matches its unrivaled talent. Under the SAF model, the football operations of a club are transferred to a new entity, separate from its social and other sports functions. This entity, responsible for the club's footballing activities, is now primed for investment, with a mandate to direct a portion of its revenues to settle historic debts, ensuring fiscal responsibility and sustainable growth. But the journey is complex. Brazilian football's transformation is set against a backdrop of huge debt and mismanagement, and a quest for global recognition. The start of this long-term vision has been incredibly promising, with clubs like Botafogo witnessing a remarkable turnaround, with debts shrinking and revenue soaring, all while keeping the spirit of the game alive. The SAF model isn't just about saving football clubs, it's about setting them on a path to flourish both on and off the pitch. They are even utilising strategies best observed at clubs like Tottenham Hotspur by raising revenues for the club from the club's assets by holding concerts and other major global events at their stadium. Taylor Swift's concert stopped by their stadium on her recent tour is one example of such initiatives. Whilst the future is very bright for Botafogo, they are not the only club to have been bought by overseas investors or to have seen a lift in revenues and, along with it, ambitions. 777 Partners, who recently invested heavily in Everton, also have investments in the region, with Vasco da Gama in Rio. Esport Club de Bahia was bought by City Football Group and added to their growing portfolio. All in all, so far, 7 of the 20 clubs in Serie now have new investments since the introduction of SAF. And while fans generally have shown minimal resistance to club takeovers, dissatisfaction with poor performance has occasionally led to criticism from significant supporters groups, but the predominant narrative is for fans of the other 13 clubs to wish to participate in the exercise and see the benefits to their team that fans of Botafogo have seen since Textor's arrival. Not every club is on board with the SAF model. The leaders of Corinthians and Palmeiras have firmly dismissed the concept as an option, emphasising that their clubs are owned by the fans or are already under professional management. It's worth pointing out that both of these clubs are at the higher end of the current income brackets of the Serie A teams and may be stubborn to change in the hope of maintaining the status quo. Given the rule changes and general willingness from fans across Brazil, this may be a futile and short-lived resistance. Outside of local investment and growth, the obvious next step for the multi-club ownership from overseas is to push for better media rights deals. This will require further structural rule changes to operate more along the lines of a club-owned and managed league system akin to the UK's Premier League, where the clubs can and do vote and decide together what is best for the teams within that system. Once again, we can pivot briefly to the Bundesliga pyramid to see a league closer to home who are contemplating similar decisions right now around revenue generation strategies through increased global media exposure. And note the recent principal agreement between clubs to sell more of the media rights of their league to capital investors in order to increase revenues both directly to the clubs and indirectly to the German football hemisphere. If you are a fan of a football club that is a part of an MCO model, then in the short term, some of you will perhaps see your clubs announce a partnership or investment into one of the Brazilian Serie A teams as yet uninfiltrated. That may also lead to more Brazilian talent finding its way into the Premier League thanks to those relationships and also the now more relaxed UK immigration rules post Brexit that reduces the need for South American talent to move to more viable European leagues first. In the long run, you will likely see more South American talent currently based in Europe preferring to return home in the peak of their career when the wage gap between the continents is reduced because of these investments. And the best part of it all is that you will almost certainly very soon be able to access far more easily Brazilian football shown more frequently via local TV access because of the new media deals that will inevitably be being handled in the next 2 to 3 years. This is especially important for the UK, who currently have no access to the Brazilian Serie A. There are 13 clubs yet to be affected by the new rule changes in Brazil. Will your club owners be looking in that direction soon? Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. Bye bye.